Hello guys, it's Theo Goff here, host of the Conquering Dyslexia podcast, and today I'm going to jump right into and speak about something that I find really crazy about dyslexia. And now this thing I discovered a few days ago. I didn't discover it, I kind of recovered it, if that's a word. And to be honest, when I recovered it, it really annoyed me a bit. It sort of like left a bad feeling in my mouth, and I want to speak about this. It's really about something that I think people can get caught up in, and people can feel like it's not helping them in their life. It's like a negatively influencing them. So yeah, that's it. To jump right in on today's episode.
So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe, where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be? Or in other words, conquer their dyslexia. That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast.
Hey guys, do you want to know the most crazy thing that I found out a few days ago about dyslexia? Now this thing, I kind of fell upon it, and basically I was, and I am creating, it's almost out, like an upgrade of this dyslexia black book, where it has all the websites, all the websites, apps, and all the dyslexic information out there on the internet, and all the best stuff, all the best websites, all the best quizzes, all the best assessments, all the best courses, or everything that's free out there, because there's so much stuff, all the best advice, all the best educators, all the best YouTube channels, all the best podcasts, everything that's best, because I consume all of it, all the best books, all the best audiobooks, all into one place. And before I did it was called the Dyslexia Black Book, and it had like all the best videos. Now I'm expanding to all the best everything. So it's something I'm really, really excited about. Hey Ray, hope you're doing all right. And so basically, me doing research for that and looking at all the websites that will be very, very helpful for other people. I was kind of looking on it and kind of like seeing what's it all about. And loads of them had the different definitions of dyslexia. I was kind of looking at it, reading it, thinking, okay, that's quite interesting. I've seen a lot of this stuff before, but I've noticed they all have different definitions. All these places have different definition to what a dyslexia is. Now these are like advice centers to go to. These places you can find help, information for you. If you have dyslexia, for your child who has dyslexia, for yourself, for adults, for all these different kind of like areas of dyslexia, and they all have different definitions. And what was really annoying is because they all had different definitions, but basically they had a lot of things in common. One that really annoyed me. One is they always called dyslexia as a learning disability. They say dyslexia is a learning disability. Some of them said learning difference, but the majority of them said learning disability. And that very, very, very annoyed me a lot. Because I'm thinking that this is a place where people go to find help, to find support, to find inspiration. And they calling dyslexia is a learning disability, and how it negatively affects reading, writing, and spelling. And a lot of people said because it's a phonological deficit and a few more complex words. But very, very few of them said there's strengths and there's weaknesses. Very, very few of them said it's a different learning disability. Very, very few of them said that there's different, that you have all these strengths as well. They have strengths and weaknesses. So it's very few of them really got to, really touch the surface to what dyslexia is. Because as some of you might know, I'm writing a book about dyslexia, another one. And at the start of it, I'm really trying to explain in detail, actually explain what dyslexia is. And because I see dyslexia as way much more as a little definition that can be described in a few lines. It is so much more than just a you mean a learning disability is so much more than just affects your reading, writing and spelling. It's so much more than just the symptoms of dyslexia. Because when we actually look at what is dyslexia, you're not answering, okay, what is dyslexia or how it affects you neurologically in the brain. That's not what I'm trying to answer. I'm trying to answer is what is dyslexia and how it really affects you in your life. Because to answer what it is to answer what impact it has on your own life. And the trickle effect, it's like, okay, what is dyslexia? Like for example, we had to explain to someone, because I had to explain to someone, okay, what does it mean to not have a leg? Oh, it means to not okay, if I'm trying to answer the question, okay, what it means to not have, you mean a leg? Good definition, say you don't have a leg, or you missing your left leg, missing a limb. That's like a very surface level of a definition. Because another definition would mean, okay, you don't have a leg, and that disables you to do many activities. That means you have to have, like accommodations. You have to have a wheelchair. You have to, have assistance driving. You have trouble doing certain activities. And another level deeper is, what does it mean to not have a leg? You have to have, a lot of assistive stuff to help you. You have to have a lot of support, but also it affects your psychology in all these different ways, and it hurts your self-esteem, and it does this, and it does that. And so you kind of building on level and level and level until you actually finally answer the question, what's it like to live without a leg? What's it like to live with dyslexia? And then once you fully answer the question, what's it like, and not speaking about it, okay, what are the practical aspects of it, is how it affects you emotionally and how it affects you psychologically. And then once you realize how it affects you psychologically and how people deal with it differently, then you can start to unravel the strategies to help them through it. Because once you understand, okay, how people deal with the same aspect differently, because you can look at the facts of dyslexia and how it affects you in all these different ways. But then once you start to understand, look, these two people can have dyslexia, have grown up in the same environment, the same resources, have the same basically severity of dyslexia, but yet they deal with it in two drastically different ways. And because they deal with it two different ways, you can understand there's two different ways of dealing with it psychologically. And then you can go about and try to understand, how does one person who thinks dyslexia is, complete curse in their life, complete limitations in their life, how they deal with it psychologically, how they think, what beliefs they have, compared to another person who thinks, oh, it's the gift, it's the be all and end all, it helps me in all these different ways. What psychological things do they do? What habits, what rituals, how do they think? And then once you notice the difference between those, you can start to appreciate the power that the psychological aspect has in all these so-called learning disabilities. And so once we can understand, that's the power of understanding the true power of understanding what is dyslexia, is understanding, first of all, what it is, and second of all, the power you have to change it, because people can deal with it differently. And the power, because you have to understand what it is, first of all, truthfully what it is, not as something that limits you. Because what really pisses me off, I'm sorry about this, what really pisses me off about understanding dyslexia and dyslexia definitions is that you are trying to clinically diagnose something, be factually correct, and people take that on as their identity about themselves. And when they take it on as their identity about factually correct, about I got phonological deficit, I can't read, I can't write, I can't these things require so much more energy, I find it so much more difficult, then them defining themselves as that is going to be so much more harder for them to help themselves. It's going to be so much more harder for them to get out of the hole they've been in, because they don't define themselves as that. Because they define themselves as someone who is limited, someone who can't do things. But yet, that's just a clinical definition, because the way that we dyslexic people found out is that there's a group of people who can't read or write or spell. So they clump them together and say, you have dyslexia. And they try to understand dyslexia and understand it as a surface level, but yet so few people take the time to go deeper. Yes, there's more things we find difficult, but also there's so much more strengths we have. And because so many people struggle to go deeper than surface level, than a negative side of dyslexia, then that leaves people with such a bad aftertaste in their mouth about what dyslexia is. So many false negative beliefs about what dyslexia is, so many limitations to what dyslexia is. So that is the biggest problem with, or the thing that I find so crazy about dyslexia is that we know so much more. Like, we know so much. There's so many amazing dyslexics out there. And what I find so crazy is that, and like why I want to have this Start Conquering Dyslexia podcast, why I want to start conquering dyslexia, doing all the books, all the courses and everything like that, is to help people realise, well, first of all, factually, dyslexia is not a learning disability. It isn't. It's classed as a learning disability to get the help, to get the needs that people would need. But actually, when you look at learning disability and you look at dyslexia, they do not correlate. Learning disability, when you can't learn something, it's like learning disability. Can you learn to read when you're blind? No, that's a learning disability. But dyslexia isn't. It just you have to require different interventions, but yet you can still learn at almost the same level as everyone else. You just learn differently, and there's no hurdle a dyslexic person cannot overcome. That does not sound like a learning disability to me. It sounds like a learning difference. Anyway, so I see dyslexia as people. Dyslexia is misdiagnosis. It's not something created in a lab. So what really drives me crazy, to be honest, is that changing what people view dyslexia as, changing the dyslexia industry to not as something clinical, not as something that needs to be diagnosed in order for people to identify themselves as dyslexic, not as something that has so much power around a diagnosis, around a clinical definition, that bit label ourselves, but see things as see things as something freeing in our lives, see things as something that, okay, I'm dyslexic, means I'm different, means I have negatives, but also have these massive strengths. But yet, ultimately, I've got to take responsibility, yet this world is stacked up against me. And you know what? That's fine, because I can't change it. They have to work so much more harder than everyone else. I have to find all these strategies, I have to solve all these problems. But that's good, because once I do, I can live so much more of an incredible lifestyle than the majority of people, because I have to overcome so much more. And yet, I do have these innate strengths that I have as dyslexic, like visual thinking, like thinking outside the box, like being creative, like problem solving, like so many more strengths. Because one, I'm born differently, and two, I've had to overcome so much more struggle. With overcoming struggle leads strengths, leads resilience, leads like not giving up. And these things are built through the gift of grit, through trying and failing. And so the point here, I want to send this message out to people, is that you're just don't define yourself by the clinical definition of dyslexia. Is that when people say, oh yeah, you're dyslexic, do not research what definition of dyslexia and define that as you. That is the furthest thing from you. You have to define yourself with dyslexia. Define yourself with this thing. Do not let dyslexia define you by any means. Okay? Because that's such a big message. Do not let dyslexia define you. You define yourself, and you define dyslexia. The best way you can do that is by deciding who you want to be and going out in the world and realize and just trying and failing. Realize things that you find hard and the things that you find easy. And that's through trying and testing. And do not be limiting, labeling yourself. Do not try something you think, okay, I find it hard to read, I cannot read. Say, no, I find it hard to read. But yet, does this affect, are you going to let this affect the way you feel about yourself? Are you going to let this affect what you can and what you can't do in your life? And no. You have to make this decision yourself, and it all comes from a foundational basis of not letting dyslexia stop you in your life. Don't let it stop you. That's a psychological thing. That's because there's two decisions. We can either let dyslexia use us, or dyslexia, or we let dyslexia use us, or we use dyslexia. And we use dyslexia, not letting it stop us. We are creating our own lives from it. And that's a psychological thing, baby. We have to do it from ourselves. Anyway, guys, I've ranted a lot and I've talked a lot, but I really hope we can take some inspiration from it and take some action. And the actions we should do is do something. We can listen to a podcast, we can listen to things that might be all inspiration, but we have to take full actions on it. Because, I've got a dyslexic black book, has all the dyslexic information. But something that's really helpful is you've got to learn for something. You take some podcast, you take some course, you take something. Because I'm writing another book, but the biggest thing, I've got this thing called my dyslexia book, which is 12 steps to conquer dyslexia. Go through each 12 steps. I'm kind of upgrading it now, but the biggest thing you can do to really help yourself is take action on that. Get that book, really use that to inspire you, really use that to help you on a much more better and much more deeper level, because that thing does have it's just using it, taking action from it. And it's got my whole stuff. Anyway, I don't want to get into that right now, but guys, I really hope we take some action from listening to this and not just stay where we are and really not define ourselves by what other people tell us, not define ourselves by dyslexia. We are more than just the diagnosis. We are ourselves and we are unique. And I believe that's in the bottom of my heart. That's nothing but a gift. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you all again soon. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Now, I got something really exciting I want to share with you. Over the last 5 years, I've been absolutely obsessed with learning everything I can about dyslexia and how they can overcome their challenges and maximize their strengths. And I've been spending many hours on many days scouring the internet to find solutions to the problems. And I found many solutions. So over quarantine, I was thinking, what if I scour the internet again? What if I go through every last resource that I've been through before and take everything that's useful and put it into one place? And that's how I filled up a lot of my time in quarantine. I scoured the internet and found all the most inspirational, all the most informational, all the most useful videos about dyslexia out there and put them all into one place, so you don't have to waste time scouring the internet to find solutions to your problems, so you know there's only one place to go. And this thing I created is called the Dyslexia Black Book. You can get it at conqueringdyslexia.net/black book. Now, I'm wanting to offer this to you and present this to you completely for free because I want to save you time. I want to save you time so scouring the internet and not finding the answers like I've done. If you go to conqueringdyslexia.net/black book, Conquering Dyslexia Black Book, you'll find it. Or guys, you can just click the link in this episode description to find it. But yeah, guys, that's the special message I wanted to share with you today.